coming on the air with a big U-turn on Wall Street. The worst day of the year so far, with the markets tanking, tech stocks sinking, even though just 24 hours ago, things were looking up. We'll talk about what it means for you and what the labor secretary is telling me about it. Plus, a bloody battle at a key steel plant in Ukraine as the U.S. pushes back hard on reports it's giving Ukraine intel on where Russian generals are. We're live overseas to explain. And the biggest drug lord since Pablo Escobar is now in New York to face trial. It only took a decade and 500 troops to capture him. The message officials want to send with his extradition in a dramatic story that feels made for the movies. Plus, a story you will see first right here on this show. Hundreds of thousands of troops demanding accountability from 3M over what they say are defective earplugs. What one veteran's telling us about what a big deal this all is in tonight's original. And we take you behind the scenes of what one Ukrainian family faced as they tried to seek asylum here in the U.S. That's in the backstory later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we're starting tonight with what is going down, and I mean that literally, on Wall Street. You've got the markets having their worst day since 2020. It's whiplash from what we saw just yesterday. Check this out. You've got the Dow closing down more than 1,000 points, the S&P down more than 150, and the NASDAQ, which is tech-heavy, down just about 5%. It's because of tech stocks dragging things down. Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, all falling. So why, right? And what's next? We're going to talk about the why piece of this in a second, but we already know what's next. This jobs report that everybody's looking to out tomorrow after Fed Chair Jerome Powell hiked interest rates this week to try and fight inflation. I asked Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh about this. What is your level of concern about the impact of inflation on the job market?
Well, certainly, we're working at this every single day. When you look at the Dow over the last few months here, it's been consistently up for the most part, but we do have some of these ups and downs. What we'll focus on here, what I'm focused on, quite honestly, is continuing to get people, workforce development, trained up to get into better paying jobs. We're doing everything around supply chain to continue to try and bring those costs down.
CNBC's Frank Holland is joining us now to talk more about what the deal is here. So, Frank, good day yesterday in the markets. Safe to say, bad day today. Why? What happened here?
A very difficult day, as you mentioned, worst day of the year. So you got to remember, it wasn't a great day yesterday. It was a good back end of the day. The day really rallied. Markets rallied after the Fed announced it would hike rates by 50 basis points expected. But then unexpectedly, Fed Chair Jay Powell, he said he pretty much ruled out a 75 basis point hike in June. The markets really liked that. We also saw the benchmark 10-year note, which is really a measure of inflation and interest rates. We saw that fall below 3%. Markets like that even better. We saw stocks really rise and rally at the end of the day. And then overnight, that yield on the 10-year note, that actually ticked back up above 3%. Markets really didn't like that. You're seeing the market action that we saw today. So as you mentioned, tech is such an important part of the market. In 2021, 31% of the growth of the S&P, often seen as a gauge of the broader market, that came from those big tech names you're just talking about. Microsoft, Apple, etc. So when tech has a bad day and tech is hurt by interest rate pressure, basically the markets are having a bad day.
Okay, Frank, we adore you to no end on this show because of your CNBC brilliance. And we also love when you throw around words like the 10-year notes and yield and whatever. In super plain English, right, when you look at how the markets did today, when you look ahead to this jobs report, that's an important one that's coming out tomorrow for April. What is the level of concern that the average American, I'm not talking about the super wealthy investors, et cetera, but like most of us in this country, what should our concern be about the potential for a recession and the Fed moves not combating inflation here?
Well, listen, in general, if you're someone who has, years to go before retiring, you shouldn't even look. If you look today, of course it's going to be down. The markets are down, period. If you're someone with a shorter horizon before retirement, you might want to think about readjusting your portfolio. Have to say, full disclosure, I'm not a financial advisor, but just common sense. If you're someone who needs to take that money out sooner than later. So the real question here is, can the Fed do what it wants to do, which is make a softish landing? That's raising rates while still keeping the economy strong, but slowing down inflation. You just heard the Labor Secretary, Marty Walsh, talk about some of the factors that are impacting inflation. So the question is, longer term, can the Fed actually achieve this goal?
So what do you think for the April jobs report? Not to get too in the weeds again, because that's not where we live on this show, but there was this weekly unemployment claim report out today that was sort of worse than I think what economists had predicted, right? It was higher than what economists had thought. Does this signal what we may see in this April jobs report, which, by the way, the market's going to react to tomorrow, too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is going to have a big impact on the market. A good jobs reports led to a lot of the rallies that we've seen in the back end of 2021, and a lot of these stocks that we're talking about right now are rising. Just really hard to predict. Obviously, you know, the report that we saw today wasn't as good as expected, but we've seen a lot of surprises in the April jobs report. The real question is, where do we see the gains? If we see those gains in the hospitality sector, that's very encouraging for the markets. That means that people are back out and spending.
Frank Holland, great to see you from CNBC. I know you're going to be a busy man, I think, over the next 24 hours. Appreciate it. To the war in Ukraine now, and some big headlines there with tonight. 2 officials denying that the U.S. shares intelligence with Ukraine to try to help kill Russian generals. Pushing back hard on this report from the New York Times, saying that the U.S. does just that. But there's some nuance here, right? Officials familiar with this tell NBC News it's against U.S. policy to share intel explicitly intended to kill, to take out top Russian commanders. Although nobody denies the U.S. does work with Ukraine on the intelligence sharing front. With the Pentagon's press secretary saying they can't control what Ukraine does with the information that they get. Watch.
Ukraine combines information that we and other partners provide with the intelligence that they themselves are gathering on the battlefield. And then they make their own decisions and they take their own actions.
The Kremlin's hitting back, saying neither NATO nor Ukraine can stop Russia from doing what it wants to do. And it's all happening as Ukrainian commanders on the ground say there's this bloody battle happening inside a key steel plant in the port city of Mariupol. What are you looking at? These are the latest videos that we're getting from the area. Obviously, you see smoke coming out of a bunch of different places, a bunch of different locations. At this particular steel plant, it's believed that civilians, innocent people, are still sheltering inside. Cal Perry is in Kyiv. Cal, let me start with this news that came out from the New York Times that the U.S. is sharing intel, and as the Times says, it is leading to the deaths of top Russian commanders. I actually talked with Hallie Cooper, who's the reporter who broke this story. She's standing by it, of course, even as the former ambassador to Russia tells me we should all stop talking about intel. He says the Ukrainians don't like it because it makes them look like they don't have a handle on things.
So I think what you said is key, which is everybody's living in the gray area here, right? And with the threats from Russia on NATO nations, I think the gray area is where the U.S. wants to be on this. And I think what you heard from John Kirby is what we're going to hear from the U.S. government, which is, look, we're sharing intelligence with the Ukrainians. What they do with it is up to them. And if it leads to the death of Russian generals, that's something that happened downrange. It wasn't necessarily our intelligence. Let me give you the NSC, though, comment, because it's very straightforward. And they say, quote, the United States provides battlefield intelligence to help Ukrainians defend their country. We do not provide intelligence with the intent to kill Russian generals. It may not be with the intent to kill Russian generals, but certainly Russian generals are dying on the battlefield. At least 12, that according to Ukrainian officials. And look, part of this is what Ukrainian officials will tell you. Russian generals are being sloppy with their operational security. They're talking on cell phones that are not secure. We're able to geolocate that intelligence and then carry out some kind of attacks. Now, the U.S. may be a part of some of that intelligence. The U.S. is just making it clear they're not connecting all of those dots, that is sort of up to Ukraine, again, downrange in these battles.
So talk about what it looks like actually on the battlefield, right? Because a senior U.S. defense official says a majority of Russian forces have left Mariupol. But what does that mean for some of the video we've just seen, some of the fighting and how it relates to that steel factory there where some civilians are sheltering?
It seems like it's bad news for the steel factory. We understand from talking to officials in and around that steel plant today that it could be the final stages of a Russian assault, that Russian forces, these remaining 2,000 forces, are on the ground. They've breached that outer perimeter, and they're now fighting over top of where civilians are huddled. The government is losing touch with fighters inside that facility. They have been today and yesterday losing touch, as I said, with people who are there. So it's quite possible that Russia is redeploying the majority of its forces to the east, to the Donbass region, where we've seen fighting spike, where we've seen this second push, and they're leaving behind just what they need to clear that steel plant. Again, there are possibly hundreds of civilians underneath that plant, and we just don't know their fate at this hour.
Hey, real quick, Cal. Kherson, this biggest city controlled by Russia. Ukraine is saying it's retaken some settlements there. We can't confirm it. We don't know if that's true, but if it is, huge win for Ukraine, no?
Yeah, and a huge moral victory. This was the first city to, quote-unquote, fall to Russian forces. The other thing we're keeping an eye on is Kharkiv in the north, a counterattack there. We understand taking back villages. These are battlefield gains by Ukrainian forces. It's a credit to their military here on the ground, and it's frankly a credit to all the weapons that the U.S. and NATO nations are sending.
Cal Perry, live for us in Kyiv. Cal, it's great to have you. Thank you. Let's bring it back here to Washington, because next week the Senate will try and will probably fail to make the protections under Roe versus Wade into federal law. You've got Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer saying he'll hold a vote Wednesday on abortion rights. Okay, but he doesn't have the votes right now. And that's partly because the two abortion rights Republicans, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, you see him here, they've given no sign they'd change Senate rules, which is a step that would need to happen, to be able to codify Roe. Knowing that, some advocates want President Biden to protect abortion rights himself. But as we're learning from the Washington Post, officials worry that any executive action would end up challenged by GOP attorneys general, right, that they would lose in court. President Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland saying today the federal government will work to protect abortion rights regardless of what happens at the Supreme Court.
If the law changes, we will address appropriate next steps at that time. But what will not change is our commitment to defending the rights of women and all Americans.
Let me bring in Carol Lee, who is outside the White House for us tonight. So, Carol, the White House, the Biden administration would certainly, if they could, love to codify the protections under Roe into law. They can't do that. That's Congress's job, right? So what is the strategy for the building behind you?
Well, look, Hallie, they're basically turning over every rock and every stone across the administration. So every department that might be able to have some role in protecting abortion rights in some way. So everything from HHS to the FDA to the Justice Department. And as you heard the Attorney General there, one of the things that the Justice Department is going to have to do is they're going to be looking to bring lawsuits where they can and also defend abortion rights. So this is a whole other, they're going to be very busy. This is not something that they've had to do if this winds up being the decision. But the administration is in this position where they want to be able to do something, but there's not really much they can do. And the political pressure from Democrats is only going to intensify, particularly if this decision becomes final in this summer. And so they're trying to figure it out. They've been talking about this for some time, though. The president even said that himself. And they still don't have an exact, clear strategy, just because, as in any executive action, it's not just with abortion rights. There's always going to be that potential legal challenge to it. And in an issue that is this divisive and polarizing, that's even going to be even more the case.
Carol, there's also, as you look at what's happening, down Pennsylvania Avenue from where you are, there's what's playing out with Democrats and Republicans. Republicans on the Senate side out now with these, set of talking points, if you will, showing they want candidates to focus, right, Senate candidates in these battlegrounds, to focus on restricting late-term abortions, which, as we know from the trigger laws we've been covering, that's not what would happen in many states, right? Many of those states with these trigger laws would basically outlaw abortion altogether. Have you heard from sources about what the political strategy is from the Democratic side on how to combat those talking points, or anything from the Republican side on how pragmatically realistic those are, those discussions are for some of these candidates in these tough states?
Well, from the Republican side, you can see how they're in this bind, right? Because they've raised a ton of money off of pro-abortion rights, that part of the party. The overturning Roe versus Wade, however, is not something that is broadly popular. And so they're trying to, which is why you see Republican leaders focusing on the fact that this was a draft decision that was leaked. So it's all about the leak. And you're seeing them focus on things that are have more support across the spectrum. So things like late-term abortions, as you mentioned. And what they're going to try to do is focus on that. What the Democrats and the White House are trying to do, and the challenge for them is going to be to continue to relentlessly point out what specifically is in all of these laws, these trigger laws that are already on the books. And you've started to see the president try to do that by just saying that this is extreme and the views of the so-called MAGA party are extreme. And they're also trying to then broaden it out, right, to say, hey, if you think they're just going to come after your abortion rights, they are going to also come after what you do in your bedroom, all kinds of things. And so that's where the Democrats are, and that's where the Republicans are, and they're all kind of arguing over some overlap of voters who just aren't on the extremes of either side.
Carol Lee, outside the White House for us tonight. Carol, thank you. We got to get to some breaking news out of Israel, where medics are saying 3 people have been killed and another 4 have been hurt near Tel Aviv. You've got Israeli media reporting 2 attackers, one with a gun, the other with an axe, targeted people at a park in the city of El Ad. 2 of the people who are hurt are in serious condition. Police don't know who did this, but they do think it was some kind of a militant attack. You're looking at video now of the aftermath. This is stuff coming into us just from the scene in the last couple hours. It's all happening as Israeli and Palestinian tensions have gone way up in the last few weeks after attacks in Israel, military operations in the occupied West Bank, and violence at the holy site in Jerusalem. Raf Sanchez is joining us now on the phone. Raf, what else do we know about what happened here? Bring us up to speed.
Hallie, there is an enormous manhunt underway at this hour across central Israel. As you can imagine, there is a huge number of police being supported by the Israeli military, searching for whoever was responsible for this attack. They have deployed a helicopter. They appear to have deployed military drones. And there are checkpoints popping up on the highways all over central Israel right now, trying to cut off any possible escape. Now, as you said, Israeli media is reporting 2 attackers. You and I have both covered mass shootings, Hallie. Often there is reporting of multiple attackers, and then it ends up being 1 attacker. But the reporting out of Israel, unconfirmed right now, is at least 2 attackers using a gun and an axe in this city of Elad. Now, this is east of Tel Aviv. I should stress, this is a city inside of Israel. This is not a settlement in the occupied West Bank. This is inside of Israel. And this is a very religious city. It's an ultra-Orthodox city, so a very, very observant community there. The focus of this manhunt at this hour seems to be on a wooded area to the edge of the city. They're combing through that, trying to find these attackers. But the headline, 3 dead, 4 wounded in Elad, and that manhunt still underway.
Is there any discussion, Raf, about the timing of this? Today is Israel's Independence Day, right? And it is the day of this attack. Has that been something that's been brought up by officials in discussing this so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody thinks that this is a coincidence, that this attack is happening on Independence Day. This is Israel's July 4th. This is a day of celebrations. People have barbecues usually. They go to the beach and the weather is good. There's a big air show all across the country with aerial acrobats. Israel's foreign minister, Yair Lapid, is saying the joy of Independence Day was cut short in an instant. A murderous attack in Elad terrifies the heart and soul. He goes on to say, we will continue to fight together for our independence and the security of the citizens of Israel. Hallie, as you said, this coming after weeks and weeks of tension in Jerusalem, other parts of Israel, and the occupied West Bank.
Raf Sanchez reporting on that for us tonight. Raf, thank you. We're going to stay on top of that story and bring you any developments as we get them. How about this next story? It's something like you'd read in a Hollywood script, right? One of the most wanted, one of the most feared drug lords in the world, like on the level of Pablo Escobar. Arraigned today in New York for drug trafficking charges, according to the feds. We're talking about accused Colombian kingpin Dairo Osago, known as Otoniel. Last year, it took 500 soldiers, 500 troops, right? 500 people to take this guy down, acting on intel from the U.S. and the U.K. He was hiding out in Colombia's jungle. 8 rings of security were protecting him. I told you, it's like a movie script. This is him. He's wearing a bulletproof vest during his extradition. The feds say Otoniel is the boss of one of the most powerful drug cartels in the world. His organization is said to be trafficking nearly 200 tons of cocaine every single year. I want to bring in Tom Winter now. This is an extraordinary case, Tom.
Yeah. It really is, Hallie. I mean, you're talking about 500 troops, but you're also talking about 22 helicopters that they needed. And they say that because he was living off the reservation, in their words, no phones, no sort of electronic communications around him at all, trying not to get captured as he controlled this enormous cartel and empire, primarily almost exclusively in cocaine. They say that he hid out in the jungle and that he employed a number of sicarios, people who would kill on his behalf. We're talking about alleged killings involving Colombian police officers, alleged killings of the Colombian military. They also were involved with a number of killings, as you would imagine, given what we know about the drug trade of individuals that both worked for him and he thought would be a traitor to him or had turned government witness on top of that, as well as people that would try to stand in his way and, of course, rival cartels. You know, we haven't heard a lot about this individual. He hasn't been talked about in the press a lot, obviously a focus of law enforcement. We've been so focused, Hallie, on what's been going on with the opioid epidemic and its natural kind of follower, if you will, the transition to heroin laced with fentanyl, and fentanyl, which, of course, is so deadly and has been such a scourge in this country for so long, primarily trafficked by Mexican cartels with precursor chemicals coming from China. In the meantime, they say that this person's, O'Toniel's organization, has been involved in cocaine. When they would seize and make busts, we're talking about boats filled with cocaine, multi-ton busts. So this isn't somebody who, they pick up a package at an airport or they intercept some sort of a UPS or FedEx box. This is a situation where they're picking up tons of cocaine at a time. Obviously, somebody who they've wanted for a long time involved in this this drug trade.
And such a big deal. It's obviously gotten the attention too of the Colombian president, right? Who's tweeting that he wants O'Toniel to see justice, basically to face justice. What's also interesting here, I mean, I think he faces something like, well, I don't know. How long does he face in prison? But also the extradition itself. I mean, that is significant here, as it feels like feds here in the U.S. are trying to send a message.
Definitely trying to send a message. So he does face up to life in prison if convicted, Hallie. He pleaded not guilty just a few moments ago in court in Brooklyn, New York. He didn't even try to fight the detention, so it wasn't even as if he asked for bail or had some sort of a beef with prosecutors. I mean, somebody like this, he knows he's going to be held pending trial. That's what they asked for, and that's what he's gotten. So he does face a significant penalty here, obviously, with life in prison. You know, for somebody like this, the idea is that even if you're at the top, even if you think you're living quote unquote off the grid, even if you think that you're surrounded by this tremendous security, you mentioned the 500 members of the Colombian military that they needed to get him, that the U.S. can still get you. And that's their message, and that's what they're trying to send.
Tom Winter, live for us on that. Tom, keep an eye on it for us, will you? Appreciate it.
Sure thing.
The Justice Department today says they're creating a new office to help enforce laws around the environment and toxic pollutions, which they say really hurts poor and marginalized communities. This new office is going to work with the EPA to investigate companies or state governments that seem to violate federal laws. It's all part of the Biden administration's push to try to address inequities historically, something that some activists say he really has yet to deliver on. To the COVID pandemic, with tonight cases of the virus going up as we get some grim new numbers that show just how much of an impact COVID has had here in the U.S. and around the world. The World Health Organization today says they estimate nearly 15 million people. Think about that. Nearly 15 million people have died from COVID. More than double sort of the official number, because that includes excess deaths from other causes related to health systems that are just overtaxed. According to NBC News data, the U.S. has lost more than 1 million people to COVID. Over the last 2 weeks, 46 states, so nearly every state in the country, has seen an increase in the number of new cases. Steve Patterson is live for us in Kirkland, Washington, near Seattle. And Steve, I'm having deja vu because I remember watching you in the early days of the pandemic. It is where you are outside the location where the first COVID death was confirmed in this country more than 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, a lot has changed here. Obviously, I think people have updated their policies. They've implemented a lot of things, both in the hospital system and the healthcare system, and these chains behind me, these life care centers, to which they were able to fight back against the virus. But in a lot of ways, you know, they can't move on because of what happened here 2.5 years ago. I mean, this was a place where sirens were swirling constantly, ambulances constantly. People had family members inside this life care center. 39 people, residents, died inside there. 7 more attributed to this place. And nobody knew what was going on early on. I remember, I mean, people weren't wearing masks. EMT workers weren't wearing masks and gloves. They were handling these COVID patients, so they were getting sick themselves. And there was a sense from people that had family members in places like this of trying to find answers from the CDC, from hospitals, from their own family members, because once quarantine happened, a lot of times that was the last time they saw their loved ones. There was no sophisticated way to video conference or to Skype somebody. They simply just got taken away. So it was a time of abject fear that still permeates through this community, because COVID is obviously not over, but they've done a lot to try to move on from where we were all those years ago.
You've had a chance, you know, there's so many families now, right? Where there are 1 million families, roughly 1 million families, who are grieving the loss of somebody who died from COVID. You talked with a woman whose mom was inside life care when it became, you know, ground zero for the pandemic here.
Yeah, if you could think back, you might remember those stunning images of a woman who would be right over my right shoulder here, like here. There's one of the windows there. This woman, Carmen Gray, her mother was inside there. This is when of course. I mean, I think we all do. The pandemic was raging at that point. There were a number of people dying. She didn't know what was happening. She couldn't contact her mother, and so she's sitting up at that window on the phone, trying to get a hold of her to say anything. And she just told me about what that experience, the fear, all of that was like at the time. I just want to play it for you. Listen to this.
I just really wish that if in the beginning they would have told people, your loved one's going to die alone. You're not going to get to see him. You're not going to get to bury him. You're not going to get to celebrate their life. Maybe it would have made people react differently.
And that maybe is the most haunting thing about this virus, is that it's separated so many families and so many then that would just pass away without knowledge, especially here early on, you know, when there was no communication. That's what she experienced. Fortunately, her mother did survive, still in assisted living, but obviously made it through the virus.
Steve
Hallie.
Patterson, live for us there in Kirkland. Steve, it's really great to have you back tonight, although it is such a grim and difficult milestone, I think, for so many in this country. Thanks, Steve. Tonight, millions of people from Little Rock to Dallas are getting ready for strong wind, hail, maybe even tornadoes. The system that spawned a tornado that hit Oklahoma overnight, ripping off roofs and damaging homes. Same system that's now expected to keep moving through. Look at that video. Oof. You'd hate to be the guy in that truck, right? You saw flooding from up to 6 inches of rain, closing some roads in Missouri today. A woman even had to be rescued when her car was swept away from the flooding. If you live in the Mid-Atlantic, get ready because the threat is shifting to you tomorrow. People here in D.C., up on north, can expect a very wet start to the weekend. Coming up, Beijing is bracing for a new wave of COVID cases, while the people who live there are really on edge over the country's restrictions. We'll have the latest from China. And did you hear about this? Elon Musk expected to be Twitter's temporary CEO once his deal to buy the company wraps up. How's that going to work? We'll talk about it. New reporting out from CNBC says Elon Musk is going to be Twitter's CEO, at least temporarily, after his deal to buy the company gets finalized. You may be thinking, wait a second, didn't Twitter just get a new CEO? They did. He started only like 5 months ago after taking over from Jack Dorsey. This whole thing is coming as a new SEC filing shows Musk has rallied friends and investors to put down another $7 billion towards his push to buy Twitter. He wants to own it. He looks like he's gonna. The biggest investor, Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, gave $1 billion. Venture capital firm Sequoia gave $800 million. Fidelity gave more than $300 million. Musk has agreed to pay $44 billion to buy Twitter. Steve Kovac from CNBC joins me now. Steve, some of us don't, if you don't know those big companies, the point is some rich people are helping a really rich guy buy Twitter at this point. And this rich guy, Elon Musk, wants to take over not just the company from an ownership perspective, but like the operations of it from the CEO perspective. What does this mean for somebody like Musk, who has been extremely clear about where he stands on things like free speech, opening up the platform, maybe make people pay to use it, et cetera?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. You nailed it. What we're learning now, and we reported on today, is that Elon Musk, in this kind of pitch to those wealthy friends and investors that you're just talking about, also said, hey, I'm going to be CEO, at least temporarily, till I can find someone else to take over the company. And look, we already know kind of the direction he plans to take Twitter in. We've been talking for the last month or so about his free speech principles and his ideas around being less dependent on advertising. Now, at the same time, after this transaction is complete, or if it's complete, he's going to have to figure out a completely new business model to make these new investors happy. If he really does get away from advertising, which is 90% of Twitter's money right now, he's going to have to find a new way to make money on the platform.
You talk about this conversation over free speech, and just to catch people up on it, the conversation is, you know, Elon Musk has been very vocal about concerns that Twitter, for example, cracked down too much on free speech. Of course, the Twitter response is it's disinformation. It's lies about stuff like COVID or the election, and that's the issue here. It's a lot for Musk to have to deal with if he does become the CEO. Is he still going to run SpaceX and Tesla? Like, what happens?
Yeah, Elon Musk has a lot of time on his hands, I guess, because he's already running Tesla, like you said. He has SpaceX, which is a private company. And keep in mind, he has two other companies that he's not exactly CEO of, but deeply involved in. There's the Boring Company, which wants to dig tunnels underground to alleviate traffic. And there's another one called Neuralink, which is trying to basically hook your brains up to computers. So Twitter is just another part of his new empire. So, you know, his attitude is, look, I can do it all. He doesn't sleep much. We know his tweeting habits already. So, you know, all hours of the night, he's working constantly. He's not a normal 9-to-5er like you and me. You don't become the richest guy in the world if you work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you and I aren't 9-to-5ers either, but boy, I already have 3 jobs. I don't want 7. Steve Kovac, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Great reporting. Really glad to have you on. Thanks.
Thanks, Hallie.
Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1. Karine Jean-Pierre will be the next White House press secretary. The Biden administration making that announcement not too long ago. She's going to be replacing Jen Psaki. Jean-Pierre will be the first black woman and the first openly gay person to hold that role. It is an historic pick from President Biden. Number 2. This guy, Congressman Madison Cawthorn, says blackmail will not win after an opposition group released a video that appears to show him naked in bed on top of somebody else. The 26-year-old lawmaker is responding on social media. He's saying he was just trying to be funny with a friend. It all comes less than 2 weeks before the Republican primary election in Cawthorn's district. Number 3, oil companies are reporting some major profits since the start of the year. Shell announced first quarter earnings of more than $9 billion, its highest ever since 2008. If you're thinking, wait a second, oil companies are making a lot of money, I'm spending a lot on gas, you're right. And that's not expected to change as we head into the summer. Number 4, the man leading Amazon's union was at a Senate hearing today. Christian Smalls slammed his former employer and said the company violates labor laws and workers' rights. Smalls and other organizers for unions for Starbucks and REI were also invited to the White House to talk about their unionization push. Apparently, President Biden even popped into that meeting, too. Number 5, TikTok's pushing a new way for creators to make some money. TikTok Pulse. It's an ad program that'll let marketers buy spots in the top 4% of all videos. It's a first, according to TikTok, and says it's going to benefit creators with at least 100,000 followers. You've got parts of China relaxing some of their pandemic restrictions today, as Dr. Anthony Fauci called China's COVID situation a disaster in a new interview. You've got Hong Kong coming out of its deadliest wave of outbreaks. It's reopening beaches and pools, broadening the limit on the number of people who can eat out together at restaurants. Think about that. They had limited who you could go out to eat with. That's changing now. In Beijing, you've got officials also easing up some of their tough quarantine rules for people coming in from overseas. But with China's zero COVID approach, there are still a lot of restrictions in place. And in some ways, they're hurting the country. Businesses, production lines and factories shutting down for weeks. You've got some people really furious over all the rules more than 2 years now into this pandemic. Here's Janice Mackey-Freyer with more.
Hallie, officially, there isn't a lockdown in Beijing yet, but in many ways, it sure feels like one.
Across Beijing, schools, theaters, and theme parks are closed. There's no dining in at restaurants, only takeout and delivery. And a mass testing dragnet. 20 million people tested multiple times, in some areas every day. So far, just over 500 cases have been reported. The anxiety that a wide-scale lockdown might still be coming. 2 years into the pandemic, China's tough zero-COVID policy faces a moment of truth here. Shanghai's lockdown is nearing 6 weeks. There's a decline in cases, but public anger is simmering over chaos to get food or to get into hospitals, and over videos like this, showing a funeral home worker refusing to take a COVID victim because the person was not dead. That the video went viral here led to government officials admitting the mistake and ordering an investigation. Across China, there are now close to 400 million people living under some form of COVID restrictions or lockdown. With low expectations for a return to normal life or open borders soon.
I hereby pronounce you, Matt and Janelle, husband and wife. You may now kiss the bride.
This expat couple in Shanghai went ahead with their wedding over Zoom. The ceremony was officiated from the U.S. They had a get-together outside, but because of the lockdown, couldn't go past their front gate. That China's 2 largest cities are hobbled and supply chains are strained is reviving debate. Some public health experts argue zero COVID is not sustainable.
People need to realize that it is a challenging environment and it's not getting any easier.
But China's government calls it a magic weapon that for a while kept cases largely contained here until now. In Beijing, disinfecting teams are back on the streets. Dozens of subway stations are closed. If even a single positive case is detected, the entire neighborhood gets walled off. That a huge makeshift hospital used during the SARS epidemic has been reopened and mass quarantine centers are being built suggests there's little chance zero COVID is easing anytime soon.
Officials say the outbreak is still challenging, but the economy is already suffering. Manufacturing and services are at their lowest point since the beginning of the pandemic, and global markets are anxious. Still, China's government is not relenting, and so the slow squeeze here will continue. Hallie?
Janice McAfee, thank you for that. Still to come here on the show, earplugs meant to protect soldiers during combat did the opposite, apparently, at least according to thousands of veterans now suing 3M over hearing damage. We're going to break that down in the original in a story you will see first on this show right after the break. The U.S. says more help is on its way to Ukraine, but refugees trying to get into this country are having some problems. We'll talk about one woman's fight to help her sister coming up in the backstory. But first, tonight's original, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. And tonight's is a story you will see first on this show. About a little something you may not have really considered before. You see them right here on your screen, military earplugs. Right now, you've got nearly 300,000 current and former service members waiting for some kind of accountability, they say, against the company 3M, a company that may sound familiar because you've probably seen boxes of their earplugs at the store, wherever you shop. They're facing these claims that a version of their product issued by the U.S. military to troops for more than 15 years was, quote, dangerously defective. Its latest battle in court just a few days ago, where a jury in Florida ruled in favor of one vet over all this, costing 3M $2.2 million. Courtney Cubie spoke with another vet suing 3M who says he feels betrayed. He feels betrayed by the mistakes that were made.
Joseph Sigmund was in high school on September 11th.
I watched a plane fly into the tower, and I realized all the people that were dying.
He joined the Army in 2006 and deployed to Iraq, where he faced grueling combat. A few years later, he deployed again, this time to Afghanistan as an artilleryman.
On a typical day, what kind of sounds would you be exposed to while you were serving in the military?
Incoming mortars, small arms fire, cannon fire. But even our generators were so loud that you had to wear the earplugs, or if we were standing beside it, you would not hear me and I could not hear you.
The U.S. military issued Joseph 3M's version 2 combat arms earplugs, or KV2, a dual-ended device designed to allow troops to hear directional sounds while also providing hearing protection. Originally developed by Aero Technologies, U.S. troops used these earplugs from 1999 until 2015. 3M bought Aero in 2008. Now, veterans like Joseph have come forward alleging the earplug design was dangerously defective, allowing potentially damaging sounds to penetrate.
You would have those on, and there was some loud noise. What was it like?
I guess you would say you could compare it to sometimes even a pinprick on your eardrum, or maybe something more blunt, a pencil lead, you could just feel it.
After 2 combat deployments, Joseph says he came back to the U.S. changed.
It didn't feel exactly right.
Joseph was diagnosed with tinnitus, a persistent ringing in his ears, even though he maintains that he always wore his earplugs.
I was religious with this. I mean, I was religious with every piece of my equipment because I wanted to come home. I wanted to see my family again.
The types of noise that the military exposes their soldiers to are not your normal type of noise.
Dr. Fenya Matson, who is not part of the 3M litigation, treats veterans suffering from hearing ailments, which she says are often caused by repeated exposure to loud noises and have varying symptoms that make them very difficult to diagnose.
So many different aspects to it. It's hard to pinpoint when and how that happens.
Joseph is one of about 290,000 former and current service members suing 3M for hearing problems that they claim resulted from their KV2 earplugs, making it one of the biggest multi-district litigations in U.S. history. Since 2021, 12 service members have won cases against 3M stemming from this earplug litigation, with juries awarding plaintiffs more than $220 million in damages. Juries have sided with 3M in 6 cases.
The amount of suffering caused by these earplugs is really off the charts.
The lawsuits began after a 2018 settlement between the Justice Department and 3M, in which the government alleged the earplugs were defective and that 3M failed to disclose a design flaw that made the earplugs too short to fit all users properly. In 2018, 3M paid $9.1 million to resolve the claims, but did not admit any wrongdoing. 3M maintains the U.S. military dictated the design, so 3M is protected from liabilities by the government contractor defense.
It is 3M and Arrow's contention at this point that they are entitled to the government contractor defense because they were given specifications of a product. They gave that product to the military, and they told the military, if there was an issue, what is it and how do you resolve it?
According to 3M lawyer Eric Rucker, the military purchased approximately 4 million KV2 earplugs that are effective with proper training.
And it's 3M's position now that this product works.
A Pentagon spokesperson declined to discuss the earplugs, citing ongoing litigation. With one more trial scheduled to begin Monday in Florida and another 1,000 in the pipeline, the plaintiffs' lawyers say they aim to hold 3M accountable.
What exactly would justice look like for those people who are suing 3M?
I think the right thing at this point is for 3M to do the right thing by combat veterans, to talk about a compensation program that'll take care of them and their needs.
As for Joseph, who recently got a hearing aid, he says a sense of betrayal still lingers.
Our uniforms were fully functional. Our gloves were fully functional. Our iPro was fully functional. Somewhere along the way, something happened. Somebody dropped the ball on that.
Courtney Kuby is joining us now for more on her in-depth reporting here. Courtney, I'm so glad you're with us. When you look at the scale of this, right, the scope of this, it is big. And yet since last year, there's only been a dozen cases that service members have won. When you have so many people all kind of saying the same thing against the company, and you've laid out 3M's defense here, right? What is the timeline for some kind of a resolution?
So that's exactly why some of the plaintiff attorneys are asking for 3M to set up some sort of a compensation program that we've seen in other cases where there are thousands or tens of thousands, in this case, literally hundreds of thousands of plaintiffs who are claiming that they may have been harmed by this product. And so they're calling on the company to set up some sort of a program where everyone could come together, their cases could be individually tried and looked at, and then potentially they could get some sort of compensation or payout much faster than what we're already seeing. But it's important to point out, yes, there have been a dozen cases in this time frame, but we're already talking about tens of millions of dollars that have been paid out. In the meantime, there are still a lot of veterans and active duty service members who claim that they're suffering because of this product.
Courtney Kuby, thank you so much for bringing us your reporting right here on the show. We look forward to seeing your follow-ups down the road. Thanks. Still ahead, Ukrainians leaving their home country because of the war are having a tough time getting into the U.S. in search of safety. We've got more on this in tonight's backstory. Plus, officials say a smash and grab in New York City is tied to nearly 20 other robberies. Yikes, look at that video. We've got some details coming up in the local. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Northeast Bureau. Check this out. Surveillance video shows thieves using a sledgehammer to bang their way into a jewelry store in the Bronx in New York. Officials say it's connected to at least 18 other robberies with nearly $250,000 worth of stuff stolen. Police are still looking for those guys, those people, the suspects. From our Midwest Bureau, the Chicago mayor announced the winning bid for the city's new casino license today. They're teaming up with Bally's to build a nearly $2 billion casino in the River West neighborhood. The mayor, Lori Lightfoot, and the officials say the move will help boost Chicago's economy. And from our West Coast Bureau, California is now the first state looking into how to adapt to cryptocurrency and regulate it. The governor, Gavin Newsom, signed an executive order for state agencies to work with the federal government on this. He wants the state, he says, to get ahead of the curve and to be a leader on the crypto front. Breaking news just into us as we've been on the air here on the show. The FDA has just restricted the J&J vaccine because of the risk of blood clots. Here's the deal. The agency says in a statement the shot should now only be given to adults who cannot get a different vaccine, or who specifically request the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The FDA says they're making this move after taking another look at data on the risk of life-threatening blood clots within 2 weeks of vaccination. For months, health officials have recommended that Americans starting their COVID vaccinations use the Pfizer or Moderna shots instead. Wanted to let you know that. Time now to get to the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. Today, you've got the U.S. announcing another $380+ million in humanitarian help to Ukraine. But for Ukrainian refugees trying to come to the U.S., it's a really tough process. One woman, Svetlana Rogers, has been working around the clock to try to bring her sister, Olana Kopchak, on the left, to live with her and her family in New Jersey. They live in Princeton. When the war started, Olana hid with her family in a basement before escaping to Poland. So for weeks, her sister's been trying to get together all the documents they need to get her here, and it's a lot. Rogers has had to prove how much money she's making. She's had to prove her sister's family was healthy. That meant calling friends on the ground in Ukraine to get vaccination records from doctors' offices. By the way, doctors' offices that are now closed because there is a war in that country. She needed the deed to the house that they left when Russia invaded, even proof of how much money they could make once they got to the U.S. Julia Ainsley's been reporting on the story and joins us now. And Julia, you know, for the last few months, we've seen these refugee numbers go up and up and up. This is an issue that you cover, not usually as it relates to Ukraine, right, but as it relates to other countries and immigration, et cetera. What drew you to telling this one particular family story? How did you find out about it?
Well, you're right, Hallie. I cover a lot of what happens at the U.S. southern border, and actually that was a story that converged with the Ukrainian war story this year because there were Ukrainians crossing over from Tijuana into California, starting to be thousands of them because that was their only route to get here. And then just about a week and a half ago, President Biden launched this website for Ukrainians to be able to come to the U.S. They were no longer able to cross the southern border, but this was seen as a safer route. Americans living here could sponsor Ukrainians, show that they were able to provide for them here and they could come over. Well, I wanted to follow up on that because if that's the only route to get here, let's see how viable that is. So I started to get in touch with some of the refugee resettlement agencies that would normally resettle Ukrainians who would be coming through a normal route, not during this emergency situation that the Biden administration has now launched in order to get them here really quickly. And I said, look, what's happening? What are you hearing from people? And they're like, you know what? Here are a number of families you should talk to directly because the refugee resettlement agencies aren't able to do anything for them right now. The only way they can come is if an individual sponsors them. So I got in touch with Svetlana. I talked to her when she was really excited about the website launching. And then we've just stayed in touch. We text about every day. I hear what's happening. Wow. She sends me screenshots of what's online. And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, you know, I was outside the Supreme Court on Tuesday covering the leaked Roe versus Wade, and I was getting shots from her showing how she had to go find the deed to their home, to her sister's home that she left. You can see the last time they were there, they were in a bunker in that house. And I just couldn't believe it until I got on the website myself and went through. And sure enough, exactly what Svetlana was telling me she was required, that's what this website was laying out. I went to my sources at DHS and they said, yes, I mean, that's our process now. It's not that it's all required. There's no black and white. If they don't have this, we'll deny them. But we're asking for it all because we want to see it all. It's part of a whole package, and then we'll decide whether or not they can come. It kind of blew my mind, honestly.
That's super interesting, Julia, because I was going to ask you, this backstory segment is all about pulling back the curtain, talking behind the scenes about how the reporting actually happens. You've seen a lot, so to hear something that surprises you, I think it's interesting. What else stood out to you as you were talking with this family, like in going through sort of their journey?
Yeah, well, so just today, even, I had the chance to speak to Svetlana's sister, who's in Warsaw, and she told me about, in order to get some of those vaccination records, what they did. At first, I thought, it was just doctor's offices. She said, no, the doctor's offices were closed. So then they had to go to hospitals. Their mother is a nurse. She had a connection inside a hospital to get someone to go through a hospital that is already completely overwhelmed with victims of the war and go find paper vaccination records to show they had polio vaccines as children. This isn't like they have an electronic healthcare medical record system like we do here. This is a paper and a filing drawer in the middle of a hospital in a war zone. That's the kind of thing they've been required to provide. They've now provided it, and they're waiting to hear what their fate will be.
Julia Ainsley, thank you very much for bringing us that reporting. It's great to hear how this comes together. It's a fascinating look. Appreciate it. We got to get to some breaking news now, also related to Ukraine. An exclusive that has popped here on NBC News just in the last, looking at my clock, in the last couple of minutes here. Here's the deal. Officials say that Ukraine used U.S. intelligence to sink that Russian flagship, the Moskva. Remember, we talked about this? The name of the ship literally translates to Moscow. It sank in the Black Sea a few weeks ago, April 14th, after it was hit by 2 Ukrainian anti-ship missiles. This was a huge headline when it actually happened because it seemed like such a significant win for Ukraine. Ken Delanian is among the team breaking that story for us, along with Courtney Kuby and Carol Lee. Ken, tell us more about it.
Well, Hallie, a lot of people speculated at the time that maybe the Ukrainians had some help finding the Moskva to target it, and that's what we've confirmed today. And it took a lot of work to confirm that U.S. did share some information with the Ukrainians, some location information, and in fact confirmed to the Ukrainians that it was the Moskva, this flagship vessel. This was really one of the most humiliating moments in the war for Vladimir Putin, Hallie. The idea that the Ukrainians could take down this advanced ship, which is bristling with cannons and missiles. And there's a lot of mystery still about exactly how they did it. The U.S. has said that 2 Neptune anti-ship missiles struck the Moskva, and that caused it to sink. But there's still some mystery about why Russian anti-missile systems on the ship didn't work or why they didn't see the missiles coming. But one thing we do know in our reporting tonight is that the U.S. helped the Ukrainians confirm the identity of that ship and locate it. Now, officials are saying the U.S. had no role in the actual attack and that they viewed this provision of intelligence as defensive because the Moskva posed a threat to Ukraine as part of this Russian invasion of Ukraine. And this is a really delicate balancing act, Hallie, because we're reporting a lot about U.S. providing intelligence to the Ukrainians that's killing Russians. I mean, hundreds of sailors died in this attack. So American officials that we're talking to are worried that the reporting of this could provoke the Russians. But it's something that's happening in this war on a daily basis, and we're talking to officials, and they're talking about it, and we're bringing it to you.
Ken Delanian, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Court's just wrapping up for the day in the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard case, but not before jurors listen to Amber Heard describe her ex-husband as a jealous and abusive man, fueled by drugs and alcohol and enabled by his staff.
He would pass out and, get sick and lose control of himself. And then people would pick him up and clean him up and fix it. And he wouldn't either remember or he would deny it. So I started to take pictures to say, look, this is happening.
Heard backed up her testimony. You heard her talk about pictures. Here's some of them. She says where Depp passed out several times. Heard is defending herself in this $50 million defamation suit filed by her ex-husband. She's countersuing for $100 million. Depp has testified he never hit Heard, claiming she's the one who punched and hit him. Maggie Vespa is joining us now with more. So, Maggie, day 2 for Heard on the stand. This time, something like 6 hours. We know it has been intense. We know it has been emotional for her.
It definitely has. And just like there were multiple pictures, there were multiple stories, one seemingly more graphic than the next, every single one. And one in particular really stuck out to everybody on our team watching this day 2 of her testimony. It was a story that Heard told of an alleged sexual assault that she says she endured at the hands of Johnny Depp, a really violent, graphic story. Again, Depp denying all of this. And just to our viewers, we're not going to play the most graphic portions of this part of the testimony, but we want you to get kind of an idea of the tone inside that courtroom today. So here's a big moment from today in court.
I was trying to get through to Johnny, and I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him at all. I remember just trying to get up so I could breathe, so I could tell him that he was really hurting me. I didn't think he knew what he was doing. I don't know how.
Again, that was that 2015 Australia trip. That's been in the news quite a bit because that's the trip that Depp says, again, he never assaulted or hurt her. That's been his testimony throughout. But he says on that trip, he testified, was the aggressor, throwing a vodka bottle at him, severing his figure. Heard denying, Hallie, that allegation, too.
Maggie, one of the things that I think people have noticed or may have noticed as we've been playing this is the way that I think each of them is reacting to the other, like today with Depp.
Right.
Or I guess it was yesterday now, earlier this week, Depp kind of keeping his head down during some of the testimony. What did we see as far as reactions today?
Yeah, it seemed like more of the same. I mean, you saw in that split screen as we were playing it, he kind of had his hand over his mouth. He was listening intently. A lot of the time he was looking directly at her, but a lot of the times he kept his gaze down as well, just talking briefly to his lawyers. So pretty stoic today.
Maggie Vespa, thank you for being on top of this story. It's an important one to cover. Appreciate it. And just a reminder, if you or somebody you know is in an abusive relationship and you want help, call the number on your screen, 1-800-799-7233. That's a wrap for this hour. Appreciate you joining us. It's a busy one, as always, and we expect another busy one tomorrow. We'll see you then, same time, same place. Good to be with you. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.